Hello, everybody. This is Ryan. I'm with Montana Solar, factory representative. Thank you for coming in. I'm going to have Gary Tuttle coming in here a little later. Hopefully everybody can see their screen. And we're just going to be talking about some of the features with our pole and ground mounts today. Mainly focusing on some of the benefits that'll help people out in the field. Also for installers, but also end users, some of the benefits with our tilt adjusts, and just kind of making this so it's more open for everybody as far as our features and making it a little easier for you when you're talking with customers. We'll go ahead and get started here. I'm actually going to wait an extra minute just to see if I can get Gary in here, but appreciate everybody for joining. So we'll go ahead and get started with our pole mounts. As everybody that has worked with us is probably familiar, we are made in the USA. We're up here in Charlotte, Montana. Our systems or our mounts, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. We may not be familiar with Travis, the owner, was actually an installer and wanted to create these mounts so there's more efficiency to them, easier to use, and basically trying to save some time as far as not having extra equipment and other extra people then on projects. They're easy to assemble, waist level, tilt adjustment from the ground. That's our main feature that we really pride ourselves on, because nobody else has in this industry been able to come up with a tilt adjust that's easy to use from the ground level. Again, talked about no overhead crane lifting or extra equipment as far as getting those up if you're assembling them at ground level. And there's a cost efficient side of that too, not having buy equipment, rent equipment, get equipment to site, extra people, manpower. It's going to save you time, money, and also the engineering support to also save people that extra time of having to source permits or looking for extra help as far as getting the paperwork and what size poles you needed with your projects. On our site, we have all our manuals. We'll show you that a little later, but also we're trying to give everybody a kind of a decoding of what how we're naming our pole mounts. Each pole mount, if you see the image on the left with the man standing under the array, goes through a breakdown of what the components are. And we can basically walk anybody through that, but we're also trying to give you some education with that. So as people are ordering parts, they're understanding what these numbers are meaning. So the first box that you see there under the pole mount top of pole is going to reference what size pole you're going to be using. 6, 8, 10. We also have smaller sizes that can come in to 4 for the smaller arrays. Top of pole, that's what the top will stand for, and how many modules you're going to be using. There is also an option for a tall, dependent upon if you're going to go to 5 rows. And then the size of module, be it 60 cell, 72 cell, or 96 cell. The standard heavy duty, extra heavy duty is the last part in our naming category that's going to call out your frame, what size frame you're going to need depending upon how robust the system needs to be. More obviously included with the extra heavy duty, probably a little extra with the heavy duty, and just our standard frames. Beam series is what we refer to our top of pole on our website. And again, we'll show you where that's at on our website a little later here. With the features with our pole mount, we have options to go at different heights. We have 30-foot options that we've actually sent up into Alaska. The main reason for that height is to avoid ground clearance. We're trying to avoid extra things that might block your panels. Anything that's covering up panels is going to reduce the efficiency of your system. And we're just trying to make that easy. And then something that tall with our tilt adjust feature, it's really something that's a handy tool, especially when you're trying to clear debris, trying to get stuff off of it. Be able to do it from the ground level to adjust is huge. Now with the 30, that's going to be some cranking, but it's still a great option to have from the ground level without having to get up on a scaffolding. And also with our pole mounts, it eliminates a lot of the extra legs that you'll see with other ground mounts. We call it a spider web effect. It's just easier maintenance, and single pole rows, it just looks a lot cleaner and neater. Here's some different projects that we've had, some photos just to kind of show you some options. And we have a nice one that's side by side with a multi-pole and a single pole option. And a lot of our customers love that feature that we have, the flexibility. You can keep them in single arrays, or you can break them down into one pole options. The tilt adjust, we touched about a little bit. It's adjust from ground level. Seasonal tilt maintenance, and it's also got an adjustable range of 5 to 90 degrees. The crank system that we have, you see the photo over here on the left of the gentleman that's using that crank tilt adjust right there from the ground for a 6-top. Our pole mounts, they work in challenging arrays, challenging territories, and different aspects as far as if there's anything that's outside the norm. We seem to thrive with stuff that's off grid, but we're also very capable of working in urban areas as far as working around different buildings and whatnot. And I'll show you some photos of some other projects too. This is a photo that Gary actually was a part of, and it's just, again, showing you some different options and areas that they're putting this in. This is in the backyard of a home project that he did. Some more challenging photos just to show you some different sloping terrain. And then also, if you look at the tilt that we have on that panel, so somebody can get right up in front and get that last panel in there after they got the pole cap mounted. So talking about our custom, being able to put these things at ground level, safer. It's going to make the work environment a lot cleaner. Should have less equipment that you're going to bring in and install. And this is a patented product. Again, this is made in the USA up here in Charlotte, Montana. Ground assembly, again, reducing risk, managing your height. And we're just showing you some different aspects of this project as far as once this is started at the ground, once the beams are assembled and you got your pole caps in with the chain hoists, to be able to lift the array after the panels are on there to work with the wiring underneath. And then when they've got it into its final position, you can adjust with the tilts. We offer the chain hoist on our website. It's not mandatory to purchase a chain hoist from us, but it's just an aspect. If somebody forgets it, it's nice as an option to add it to each package, especially if you have somebody that's going to multiple projects. Same with the lifting brackets. It's an option we try and add to make sure that it's going out with every project, just to make sure that we're giving you everything. So once they get to the site, the only thing that you're going to have to manage at the site is the pole. Everything else from that point forward, if you order the rail, the chain hoist, and the pole mount, everything should be there for you guys with your regards to finishing your projects. Different options with the chain hoist. Our standard chain hoist is the best, but we also offer a Made in USA chain hoist if you're looking to try and support Made in USA. Some other reasons for the ground assembly, just to show you some of the other. Obviously, the center photo is not an actual solar project, but it may have been for somebody. It looks like it was more of a painting option there. But showing you somebody using a scaffolding or trying to climb up a ladder carrying the panels, this is part of the reason why we emphasize that there's a safer job environment. Less time up on a ladder is going to leave less chances for injury, should reduce overhead lifting, and the fast assembly. Two-man projects with some of our pole mounts, the smaller arrays especially, but if somebody's really good and efficient, we see that people are putting up these larger arrays with just 2 people. So best support in the field, that's something we want to emphasize with everybody. The majority of the people that work with us on a regular basis, if you call in, we try and make sure we're answering the phone to talk to you right up front. But some of the tools that we have at the website, we're really trying to emphasize because it will also help you in the field as well as helping ourselves here. The calculators that we have on our site, there's now one for our ground mounts, and we'll show you that a little later in this presentation. But the pole mount calculator especially is something that's been used on our previous website to what we're opening up with now. And these are just some of the facets that are involved with the first photo on the top right there. Shows you some of the components, and it calls out what we put in with our mounts and the internal calculator that we use here. If it goes into a custom option that we can build, those components for you, what your specified site location is going to need as far as snow load, wind speeds, all those things factor in for your site, and understanding what your code or zone is going to be requiring. We've talked about the manuals. We'll show you that a little later on the website too as well, where you can find all our manuals. Site recommendations, we have engineering on staff, and Lydia will be coming in to talk to us a little later. She can get you some sample drawings and or a drawing for your project. Permits, if you need a stamp permit, they are state specific. And also calculations, those are both, the last two are obviously for a cost, $595 and $745. But they are available site for state specific needs and for projects, and trying to help make sure we're staying with what your requirements are as far as county zone requirements and needs. So here's some custom projects that we kind of touched on that we can do different aspects as far as the array. We can work on like the challenging areas as far as putting something over a pool. We say shades your enemy, but in this case, somebody was using it as a shade porter on their pool, and it looks really nice. And also a project that we did here down in Missoula at a bank at one of their parking areas for their employees for shade for their cars. There's custom pool spacings that we can do. We can work with array configurations, and there's pretty much not a lot we won't turn away from. But, challenges, by all means, we're looking forward to that challenge, because we know if we can actually take care of you when it's a challenge, that you're going to remember us in the long term too. Multi-pole configurations, and again, this is just a photo of a project that we had, a couple arrays that had 3 poles on them. And with those extra poles, there's going to be some extra stability that comes in there, and also these things are measured for snow loads, wind speeds. We have wind speeds up to 165. Snow loads can, in California, recently we had snow loads up over 150. We can go higher with some of those, but obviously those are going to be a custom project, so if you need something like that. The next person that's going to be stepping in here to talk about our ground mounts is Gary Tuttle. And give me 1 second to see if Gary's able to come in and talk here. Doesn't look like Gary is going to be able to come on here today, so I'm going to try and take over on the ground mounts portion of this. Gary refers to our ground mounts as the best kept secret for our company. These have been around for about 2 years now. The systems are cost effective. They're a fixed mounting solution. We have different tilt options available from 20 to 50 degrees. Our kits, the way they come in, they're the complete package. So there's all parts. You're not sourcing extra poles. With this, a post will come with all of our configurations, so you shouldn't have to be outsourcing everything. All the steel should be included. This is a project Gary also worked on. I'm not familiar with what area it was, so I apologize. Gary's having some technical problems. He's not able to join us right now. So the next feature that we have is we also have the ground mounting naming guide and also our site calculator. This is our actual web order portion. I apologize, but the naming is very similar to our ground mounts as far as what we do with our pole mounts. The mounting post flange size or beam size, the B8 or B6, calls out 8 by 10 with the B8 and a 6 by 9 with the B6. GM obviously stands for ground mount, and then quantity of arrays or your modules you're going to be using will be listed there with the 60C, and I skipped over the quantity, how many of those you'll need. And then standard, again, it's the same as far as standard, heavy duty, and extra heavy duty, as far as how robust you need that system, depending upon the areas that you're putting these mounts in. You build these online. We have all those pretty well broke down. And with our project calculator that Lydia will touch base on a little later, it will call out your sizes, spacing, links in the calculator. So when you move over to the ground mount portion of it, you can actually call out all those details pretty readily right off of what our calculator's specifying for your needs for your project. Various tilt options available, like I touched on earlier. It's a fixed tilt, but the array goes from 20 to 50 degrees. It's a low profile footprint. There's not as many legs, so again, we're avoiding that spider web effect that we talked about earlier. A single row or array of the poles just makes it cleaner, easier to maintain, again, to keep debris from growing up around it. And there's a photo of an actual spider web effect on the right. Just there's more to work around when you have more of that scaffolding look inside there. It's easy to install. Like, again, everything comes with it. We have our stuff with the custom setups are available, but we also have our manuals that come with all our ground mounts. And we've recently started putting most of the components into green buckets. So we're hoping that everybody will share their photos with the green buckets. And then foundation types. We have some concrete pier, driven pile, base plates, but the custom options that we can also work with are ballast blocks, helix screws, ground screws, and more. If you have a project you're looking to try and get some help with, you just need to communicate with us as far as what you're looking for. And we can get our engineer on there. You'll be talking with Lydia a lot if you're doing stuff with the custom on the ground mounts. Here's where we have our project calculator. This will call it, like we talked earlier, about the post size, suggesting what you'll need for your site. We just need to make sure we have all your basic info as far as your tilt, what your ground clearance needs to be, wind speed, snow loads, and what kind of soil you're working with, and also how deep you want to have your foundation. This will also give you out suggestions on the foundation depth and pipe size. And this is just in reference that was a tool for you guys to use when you're trying to build your projects. In-housing engineer, again, that's still available for anything that you guys are requiring. On the left, there is actually a pole spacing, but it's just showing that we can work with different spacings with your arrays. PE stamp site specific drawings, state, provenance specific, and foundation calculator all available. We've touched on that a little earlier, but again, this is the same support that we're going to have with our pole mounts as we do with our ground mounts. So for anybody that's worked with our pole mounts before, you're getting the same service with our ground mounts now. And so that'll end the PowerPoint. We will jump over to the website and talk a little bit on our website. Just checking if anybody has questions, you're welcome to put that in the chat, and we'll try and get to the questions. And if there's any specific questions that you have, we will follow up with you after the presentation if we haven't had time to talk to or address any of the questions internal here. Bear with me 1 second. So with our website, everybody that may be familiar with it, when you come to our website, the first thing you'll see is your plan your project. Each tab has different aspects that are in here, but the main one that we were talking about earlier is our manuals. Are all available in the downloads. I'm going to turn this over to Lydia and have her present on the ground mount calculator. And it just takes me a minute to have this turned on, and then we'll have Lydia take over here in just a moment. Lydia, are you able to?
Hi, I think I am on now. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so we are going to go through the ground mount calculator today. So you'll find both the calculators under the Plan Your Project. And these are good ways to get started if you're just looking for a quote for a customer that's just reached out to you, or if you're just ready to order, you know exactly what you want. So for those of you that have used the pole mount calculator before in the past, this one it asks you the same for the same inputs. And we are redoing our pole mount too. It'll be just like this, just look the same and have the same inputs. So let's go through. So we're going to fill in our name or company. We'll do it as MT Solar. You'll put your email in, and then project name. And this is really helpful for you if you have multiple projects that you're working with, when you can save this information later. When you go back to look at it, it'll help keep it clearer for you. So we're going to go through each of the inputs. So module type, the we're going to go with 72 cells. So you would select your correct module type. And then module quantity. This calculator, and on our website, we support ground mounts from 12 to 50 modules. Anything outside of that would be considered custom. So we're going to just go with an example of ground mount 12 today. So that's going to have 12 72 cell modules. Tilt, this is going to be the tilt that you're going to install your mount at. We're going to go with 30 degrees today. And then the tilts that are supported on the website is 10 to 50 degrees. And that's what our ground mount can support. And wind speed, that is also, you just select your wind speeds for the site. And those, for the wind speed and snow load, you can reach out to your local jurisdiction where you're installing it, and they should be able to provide you those loads of what's required at the site for designs. And that'll be permitting officers, building codes. There's lots of different names depending on your area, but if you just get in contact with your authority having jurisdiction or your AHJ, you should be able to get those loads pretty easily. And a lot of people are familiar with their areas where they can just estimate. And if you're just looking for a quote, you can just come in here and fill it in. And that's a great way to estimate the exact stuff you'll need for your ground mount. So exposure is related to what is around this installation site. So B, C, and D. D is like next to a source of water, so that's really not common. C is if you are in an area that is an open field, there's not really any buildings, trees that are within like 1,500 feet. And exposure B is for those areas where it is in a wooded area. Some of the pictures that we had, most of those were all exposure B. So let's go with exposure C today. And then ground snow load. So this is important to realize that when it comes to putting loads on arrays, snow load is something that does slide off. And so that's called in code language is kind of roof snow load. So ground snow load is usually published by the jurisdiction. And so we're going to start with 10. We're just going to pretend that we're in a low snow area. It's really not that big of a deal for our loads here. And so then front edge clearance is the distance from the ground to the lowest point of the array. In the calculator, and what we want to support with our ground mount is 36 inches or less. Once you get over 36 inches, it requires just a little bit more engineering and analysis. So if you're trying to just go through the calculator, go with less than 36 and you should be able to get the outputs that you're looking for. And so also a good thing to keep in mind with this, with front edge clearance, is when it comes to the snow loads on your array, if you're in a really high snow load area, you want to be cognizant of the front edge clearance that you're choosing, and then allow for that snow to pile up somewhere. So then included in the ground mount, since we are sending it as an entire package, the foundation is important because it depends how much post you're basically going to have below ground. So the two types of foundations that are supported by the calculator that aren't considered a custom project is post concrete embedment and then driven post. And so with the ground mount, another option that we have is that you can include the posts or not include the posts. And this is really great for if you have huge projects. It may be cost effective to locally source the posts for yourself, but we also think it's great if you include it because then it comes exactly what you need. It comes with our baked enamel coating and you get the length and size that will fit with the post caps. So then soil type, that's just the soil at the site. So we can leave it as 4. And you can see there's, they list out the options. And so for the soil type, you can go to, sometimes your local jurisdiction will have that information for you based on reports that they've done in the area. Another good resource for this is any soils reports if there was a house or a building built on the location if you haven't been able to get to the site, but we always recommend just getting to the site and checking it out for yourself to get the correct soil type for exactly where it's going to be installed. And then with foundation shape, round or square, and then foundation size, there's a couple options too. So once you have all of your inputs in the calculator, the outputs show up right next to it. And so you can see it's showing you the number of posts, the distances between posts, and then the beam post length above grade and below grade. And those are probably the most useful if you are looking to install. The other inputs are there to really help develop that SKU, so that way you know exactly what you're going to be. So if you look at the product SKU on the bottom, so that shows the naming system that Ryan had talked us through earlier. So for this one, let's just pay attention that it says standard. So this is a ground mount 12, and it's going to be over 2 posts just because it has a pretty low wind speed and a low snow load. And so once we kind of make sure our outputs are what we kind of were expecting for this project, once you get more familiar with it, you can print this page. So if you scroll down and see the print all button, this gives you the option to save it as a PDF or print it, whichever how technologically advanced you are. And basically, it gives you a good resource to go back to later. So if you're going to just go through a bunch of projects all at once, you can use the project naming field and then save it as a PDF to your computer. And then when you go back to installing it, you already have your calculator done and saved. So that way the information is there. And we can always help you go back through the calculator and plug it in for you and help you get the information you need. So the other button that we see is go to product, and this will be the most useful for you as our customers. So sometimes the SKU, especially if you're new to MT Solar, might be kind of gibberish. So using this go to product button will take you exactly to the page where the product is, and it will already have the inputs filled in. And so with our ground mount, the rails are always included, just so we can achieve the cantilever and spans by supporting the rails. So once you get to here, you then can go through and add it to your cart, and you're good to go to either quote it or purchase it. So then let's go back to the calculator, Ryan, and we'll kind of show you a little bit about how playing around with the calculator will change the outputs that we're given. So let's say we go to the northern United States and our ground snow load is 50 PSF. So we're going to use all the same inputs. And once we bump that up to a 50 PSF snow load, you can see that the number of posts went from 2 to 3. And then in that SKU, it called out extra heavy duty. So that is just kind of an example of how changing these loads will affect the product that you're going to get. And if you're confused by the SKU, that's okay, because you can always go down to that go to product button and it will show up exactly as you need to order it. So the other thing we wanted to show you is that sometimes this calculator, you might put in something that comes up as custom. Your loads just aren't supported with the regular mount, and we still want to get you what you need. So let's try ground mount 24. So we're going to go to 24 modules, same setting. Well, with the way that 24 72 cell modules, kind of the size of the array, we're going to need an extra post than would be accounted for. And that's really due to the changing cantilever. As you're changing the number of posts and changing the array sizes, the cantilever, which is the distance kind of at the end from the last post to end of the modules, will be varying. So when you see something like this, it'll just always have our phone call, and you can always go to product and it'll take you to the product form, which you can fill out for any custom project, or always just give us a call and we can get you a custom quote for the mount that you'll need. So I think that's all I had on the ground mount calculator. Just feel free to use the chat if you have any more questions, and I will be sure to follow up with you later. And I think Ryan is going to go more through the ordering process and how to use the website to be efficient and help you the most with your projects.
Thank you, Lydia. Yes, it was great explanation of the ground mount, and we're really excited about that coming out. So Gary is going to be excited. Our best kept secret is hopefully getting more exposure for everybody. What I'm going to show you is with the top of pole mount. Some of the new features with that. We've simplified the ordering process with this. So hopefully, and Tom, I did see that you lost sound, so hopefully you're able to get back in and can hear us. But we will have this recorded, and we will share this with anybody that wants to see this as well. With our top of pole, what we've recently added to this now is there's a nice feature in here. So if anybody's been on here and ordered it, you probably have already seen this, but there's a 3D effect that is there to show you the SketchUp of your array. So you're able to move this around however way you want to have a visual view of your array. That'll call out the size of the panel that's being referenced, and it'll also give you the layout, and it's a nice little tool to reference to show your customers, to give them kind of more of a feel how that's going to look, and let them kind of get an idea of how that pole is going to be set. So as you were doing your ordering with this, I apologize, I lost my spot. It's pretty simple drop downs. We have it 60 to 96 cell. And as you're building your mount, you also have the pole size, 8 to 10 inches. And again, it's going to be what your recommendations from the calculator. And standard heavy duty, we can build this without doing the calculator if this is something that you already have ordered, or you know specifically if you communicated with Lydia, this is what you need to have, or you're confident enough in your territory of what your components and what your needs are. Your rail, you have the option to add with or without the rail. And once you have this built, that's when that 3D model will be there. There'll be a custom photo, but you also have the option to pull up that 3D model right there. The next thing that we're calling out is the add-ons. So you're going to have add-ons as far as the lifting bracket and our chain hoist that we talked about earlier. So you can add those on if somebody needs to have that for each project. Again, they're not mandatory. If somebody's doing a lot of our installs and are familiar and have those already, or you can source the chain hoist, but the lifting bracket, if they haven't done that before, please make sure your customers are having those added in. So once this is added to your cart and you go through your shipping options, we have multiple shipping options that are now available. Before we were just doing FedEx, but if somebody has a preference, we have more than a few carriers that are available for you guys to pick from. We have to have your information in. Once you have your shipping address and whatnot, all the carriers will list up in here as far as where you're shipping to, give you a subtotal with the total amount with your shipping. I'm going to conclude that today. The reason we're going to cut off today is Thursday, Lydia is going to go in a deeper dive into our calculators. Today was more to try and give you guys some insight with some of the features, what we're trying to call out for you to make you guys more efficient in the field with customers and also installers. The features and the support we feel are going to be the best in the industry, and we hope that you guys see that as well. But we do want to take that time and explain what we're doing new with our website, and we do appreciate everybody for joining. Questions that are out there, I think Travis answered your question about finding information with wind and snow load for certain areas with the hazard.atcouncil.org. Anybody else wants to have that information, and we can get you a link for that video. I think Mike might have sent that over to you as well. Well, we hope you all can join us on Thursday. Appreciate everybody for joining again, and best of luck out there. Let us know if there's anything else that we can do as well.